Matt might have enhanced abilities. I have enhanced delusion.
So TLDR with Matt, she's faking it.
Very much like... So I'm actually pursuing a PhD in rom-coms. Warren and Layla should have ended up together. All right, so that's like me setting the groundwork for this.
Right.
Now let's go over to Daredevil and the Punisher. Happy Sunday, everyone. I'm Mika.
I'm Becca.
And this is All You Can Feel, a charcuterie board of chatter and yapping about fandoms.
This episode is all about Kastle in PowerPoint format. As in, we've prepared PowerPoints about Kastle to show you.
I just finished my presentation 5 minutes ago, and I started it 2 hours ago. It's just been a very busy time for me, and usually I put a lot more effort into my PowerPoint, so I'm a little stressed out, a little scared, but it's okay. It's Kastle.
It is Kastle. Mine is severely underdeveloped. It's basically just text. Did I do that a little bit so that it would just be funny and simplicity? Yes. But also, is it very simple? Yes.
That's fine. Would you like to go first then?
Oh, I suppose. Let me pull it up. Yeah. It is shared. Mm-hmm. Okay, everybody, welcome to my presentation on Kastle, but also Marin, aka Matt and Karen, and Kastle, of course, Karen and Frank. Basically, a study on Karen's behavior and body language throughout Daredevil and the Punisher. Is it thoroughly researched? No. Is it based entirely on my memory? Yes. Does that mean it's going to be 100% accurate? No. But bear with me, okay? What all of this boils down to is presentation and authenticity. What I mean by that is, with one of these ships, it's almost entirely presentation, and the other is fully authentic. So we'll start with the presentation of it all. As far as Matt and Karen go, Karen's behavior and her body language dictate early on in the first season that she is kind of coy and a little doting. A lot doting, I would say. If you compare her behavior with Matt to how she acts with Foggy, you can kind of see how she ramps it up for Matt, which is not necessarily like a bad thing or necessarily disingenuous. She's flirting, so I think that's fair. But it kind of sticks and it lingers, and it's not really her raw self, shall I say. And as we get into season 2, both she and Matt are kind of keeping secrets from each other, her with Wesley and Matt, of course, with Daredevil. I think when they start dating, start sharing their feelings for each other, they really start to lean on this role playing of what it means to be the ideal boyfriend and girlfriend. And so she's definitely doing that. Season 3, she even talks about how she felt like Matt was viewing her in a way that she wanted to be viewed as like a good, this better person. And I think you see that in season 2. So she's playing this role as a girlfriend that is sort of an ideal. She's not really being herself, but as she deals with his behaviors throughout the season, she tries to be honest, she tries to set boundaries. And at the same time, she's also dealing with Frank, right? So there's sort of an overlap, if you will. And then we get a little in season 3 where she starts to be a little more open and unrestrained with her feelings. So TLDR with Matt, she's faking it. It's kind of the vibe, okay? And when we get to Frank, she's very passionate, she's very driven, she's inquisitive, she's bold, she's honest, she's all of these things that she naturally is. And we know that it's natural because it matches her behavior in season 1 with other people like Foggy or Ben. In that way, it's not like they're starting out like friends necessarily, but they're just starting out authentic, because Frank has nothing to hide either. He's always 100% real himself. And then we get into the Punisher, which, let me do a small disclaimer here that the Punisher's Karen is a little different than Daredevil's Karen, just in how they're presented. But even with that aside, it's reasonable that she would behave a little differently with the two people, Frank and Matt. But when we get to the Punisher, she's more understanding of him, but also conflicted, and she's more open. Even though she doesn't fully support what he's doing, she's understanding of the process and doesn't like get angry with him necessarily, compared to what you might have seen in season 2 of Daredevil. And then in season 2 of The Punisher, she's like authentic relationship mode. I know she's only there for 1 episode, but it's like earnest, yearning, and affectionate to the max. And that's exactly what we want to see. And if I could just show that episode, then we would be set. But I don't need to show you that. You already know. To kind of pull it into an example here, I want to...
Okay.
thorough slide here. I want to highlight two significant scenes, okay, from Daredevil and the Punisher that display her behavior and her authenticity in different ways, okay, with these men. In Daredevil, if you look at the scene in season 3, I believe it is 3-6, Matt comes into her apartment. She's like kind of mad from the start, but he basically only comes to her because he needs something. Let me be clear. In both of these scenarios, they're only coming to her because they need something, but it is still a little different. Mm-hmm. Whenever she's talking to him, she literally says, "You came to Foggy because you needed something, so what do you need from me, Matt?" And it's so charged. It's so angry and hurt because he's been lying for like 2 years, including about not being alive, right? Mm-hmm. She's upset about it. But there's something to be noted here, which is that the way she brings Foggy into the conversation makes it so that the connotation of her hurt and her anger is based on their friendship. Mm-hmm. She's chucked the relationship out the window at this point. So I think that's important to note. So fair. So basically, she's feeling used and dismissed with Matt, especially because he didn't come to her for any, relationship reason. He just came to her because he needed her help. And she literally walks away in her own apartment. She closes the door on him in her own place. Compare that with Frank in The Punisher season 1. He approaches her, but he's like, I want to say that he's a little more respectful of her and her time and her autonomy involved in helping him. They have this like conversation about his revenge and whether or not he's finished his work, shall I say. So the context there is about where he's been, what he's been doing, and her relationship with that. And she's more concerned and troubled, even though he's also coming to ask her for help. And when she finally says, "You want me to help you find them," about Micro, she's not really angry. She's not a little resigned, but I think it's because she wants to genuinely help him, even though she's conflicted because she doesn't want him to kill people. And she's very honest with him about that throughout the season 2, where she stands with him. Compared to Matt, okay, in this scenario, she literally hugs the man before he leaves, okay? And they have a cute little like flower thing, right? Like that's so cute. I just think that when you look at these two scenes, they're very different, okay? So this boils down to trust is what we're getting at. She can't trust Matt, she trusts Frank. This is important. She is someone that can be trusted with Frank. She can't necessarily be trusted with Matt because she was also faking it. Mm-hmm. You never lied to me. Right. The other evidence we have is the sensuality. I watched these clips. We're not going to watch them because interest of time. But if you look at like how she is with Matt in this particular video, for the people listening, Matt and Karen's first kiss, Daredevil 2-4, she is like trembling and like super shaky. And I wish I could just play the audio for the reminder, right? She's kind of playing it up, I would say, maybe not intentionally. And Matt's kind of playing it up because it's supposed to be this like romantic thing. And it just doesn't feel the most genuine. I think a lot of people would disagree. I think a lot of people think it was very, very romantic. And more power to you. I think that Karen was maybe a little trying to put herself in the moment rather than being in the moment. Now, if we compare that with Frank and Karen in the elevator scene in The Punisher 110, which, of course, again, I'm not going to play, even though it would be so cool if I did. Obviously, it's a little different because she's tender in a different way. But I feel like there's a gentleness and a concern and that tenderness that is very in the now, shall I say, not like trembly in the same way. There's a moment in this scene where she, like when they're leaning close, where she kind of looks at his eyes and like examines his face in a way that hints that she honestly thinks that they could kiss. Mm-hmm. I truly believe that. Mm-hmm. I think Deb did that on purpose.
I agree.
And I think that Frank reads that energy, and that's why he kind of ducks his head and then they just touch foreheads instead. I feel like there's so much more of that tenderness and sensuality here. It's authentic and real than you get with Matt. And so basically the what I'm trying to say here is the evidence is in Frank's favor for how Karen behaves, that she is more real with him throughout the series that we watch than she is with Matt until maybe season 3, which is post Karen and Matt's relationship. Also, the last slide is just obligatory Kastle gifts of their hug, of the elevator scene, of the cheek kiss, and of the final scene in the hospital where they were not allowed to kiss because Amy walked in. That concludes my presentation. Thank you. I hope that anyone who isn't Mika, because she's obviously a Kastle shipper, was swayed by this information.
Thank you.
I'm so excited.
I have not practiced this at all. Welcome, everybody, to They're the Same Ship, Kastle Edition. I was going to use several different ships, but I decided to kind of hone in, mostly because for the interest of time and just the quality of the analysis that you're about to receive. All right, so this is it. That's the end of my presentation.
I love it.
So over here we have War and Peace from Sky High, as well as Layla, and then Frank and Karen, obviously. My credentials. So I'm actually pursuing a PhD in rom-coms. I'm also a graduate of Yearning, and I'm a Virgo. That in mind, oh, by the way, these are, for those of you who are watching, I have very realistic, very authentic, very real pictures of myself.
Super real.
These are my research questions. What makes a compelling love triangle? What makes the bad boy so appealing? When can the second lead win? Matt and Karen, like, why don't they work? For me, it's not just about the idea that friends to lovers is boring. If you know anything about me and my favorite tropes, I actually think that friends to lovers is the most solid that you can get. Even my idea of enemies to lovers includes friends in the middle. So these are the questions that we're going to try to answer with this presentation. I'm sure that you've probably seen people kind of analyze the different polygons, the geometry of love, in that there are certain shows or just forms of media where the love triangle isn't actually a triangle, and it's more like two lines converging to a single point. In order for a love triangle to really kind of tug at one's heartstrings, there needs to be a relationship between the two. Let's say if it's two guys and one girl, there needs to be an existing relationship, romantic or not, between the two guys involved. So I think of the Salvatore brothers from the Vampire Diaries, Avatar: The Last Airbender. There's Zuko and Aang's very long-standing, very tumultuous relationship. And the same could be said for the following ships, right? Sky High was released in, I believe, 2005. It is a superhero coming-of-age comedy with a hint of a love triangle. And if you haven't seen it, you should. It's really funny. It's really camp. And Nicholas Braun is in it. And if you only know Nicholas Braun from Succession, this is the only thing I know him from because I have yet to watch Succession. So that's fun. But when it comes to the love triangle in this movie, it's very much Katang versus Zutara. Oh, he's a really good guy versus, oh, he's the bad boy. He's the troublemaker. He wears leather jackets. That sort of thing. Will, our main character, he's the son of these two very famous superheroes, and he doesn't have any powers that he knows of. He develops his powers late. He ends up having super strength, so he's kind of a late bloomer. But up until that point, he's treated like a sidekick. That's a whole other thing in the movie. But his childhood best friend is Layla, and Layla is also seen not necessarily as powerful because her power deals with plants, and she's a very, I don't want to say docile, but she's very vocal about being a pacifist. So she's not actually interested in combat and conflict in that way. And then you have War and Peace, who is played by Stephen Strait. And all the girls who grew up in Y2K, we all loved him. We all adored him.
Stephen Strait.
So he was famously the son of a supervillain who is currently in jail, who was put in jail by Will's parents. So the beautiful thing about this love triangle is that it works because Will and Warren have this sort of very complicated relationship that doesn't really take the front stage until maybe towards the end of the film. But it's very believable that they have like this kind of arch nemesis vibe. And then you have Layla, who she does the fake dating trope where she wants to make Will jealous because she loves Will, and she convinces Warren to pretend to date her. And so we get kind of like a jealousy trope. The end of it all, She does get what she wants. She ends up with Will. However, if you know anything about this film, and if you grew up in the 2000s, the very popular belief is that Warren and Layla should have ended up together. All right. So that's like me setting the groundwork for this.
Right.
Now, let's go over to Daredevil and the Punisher. We know these clowns, so I'm not going to really go into it. But yeah, we have Matt, Karen, and Frank. Matt and Karen know each other. They work together. Matt and Frank are at odds because of the way that they handle conflict, of the way that they, one of them kills people. The other doesn't like to solve problems that way, which is valid, but they definitely butt heads about it. And in the middle is Karen. Now, Karen doesn't do a whole fake dating trope with Frank, though, oh my gosh, like it
would be incredible.
I would do anything to have that subplot. But she does work together with Frank, which upsets Matt. In this particular love triangle, I think that it also holds up that they have a very strong, albeit fraught relationship, Matt and Frank. Everybody within this triangle has a connection to the other that is very deep and can stand alone, which is a very important part of a love triangle, so that everybody is invested. You don't know who exactly you're rooting for. So that brings us again to Warren and Layla versus Frank and Karen. They're the same picture. Not only do we get a very parallel scene of them in a diner, or rather in a restaurant, where Warren is giving Layla some hard truths about her relationship with Will, and Frank is equally giving hard truths about Karen's relationship with Matt. So I don't know, like, it's all there. I could just end the presentation right here and just like leave the room, but I'm not going to do that because I'm a Virgo. We got to read deeper. We have over here Will being jealous of Warren and Layla. And you know what? I decided to superimpose Matt in there for Karen and Frank. Now, because of production and just behind the scenes things, Matt was not a part of The Punisher, the show. However, I do believe that if he had been, he would have been out of his mind that Karen was helping Frank not only achieve his revenge, i.e. kill people, but just being around Frank, who's a dangerous man, which is, side note, very hilarious coming from Matt of all people, but that's neither here nor there. It doesn't add up to me. Matt and Karen doesn't add up for the exact same reasons that Becca described in her presentation. And in the same way, Will and Layla don't work. The reason why so many of us were so disappointed, or just for the last few years, kind of like, why didn't they end up together, Warren and Layla, is because Warren and Layla had A, more chemistry, and B, they pushed each other. So Layla, even though she was being pushed by Warren to kind of own up to her feelings and just like be real with Will, in the same way, Layla gave Warren an opportunity to kind of look past his, his anger. She gave him a reason to connect. And that's very much in line with what Karen offers to Frank, because Karen famously says to Frank that she wants an after for him. That is, she wants some sort of resolution, some sort of ending for him that is beyond his vengeance plot. Frank, of course, rejects this very hard in the hospital scene in season 2. But I think that him bringing up Matt within that scene was as if they were on equal ground. Like, he's like the other option. So it's very much romantic. And it's also very, in my opinion, is it out of fear of his own intimacy? For sure. But it's also out of the selflessness of like, I want Karen to be with someone better. Is he an idiot for suggesting that? Yes, because Matt is messy and not good boyfriend material. But I see where he's coming from. And for that alone, like, I understand. Marin and I guess I can't call them Wayla, because I guess Warren and Layla is also Wayla. But Lil, I don't think that Lil or Marin work together because they become kind of stagnant with each other. They're definitely sources of comfort based on that friendship. But the thing about friends to lovers is that in order for it to work, they have to push each other to be better, to grow. And I just don't see that with Marin or with Lil because they grow, but separately. It's kind of like, yes, if you've ever watched Riverdale, kind of like why Betty and Jughead ended up not working out. I mean, besides the awful writing in general, I think that that relationship fizzled within the confines of its universe because they ultimately stopped being honest with each other, which goes back to Becca's point about trust. And the same can be said for Will and Layla, where they kept secrets from each other through the movie. And only at the end, when all was revealed, did they kind of get together. And it just felt like a cookie cutter Band-Aid sort of solution. So that's kind of how I feel about these ships. Let's go back and revisit these questions. So we know that what makes a compelling love triangle is that when all parties involved are they have a relationship, they have a stake with each other, and that is the case with both Sky High and Daredevil / the Punisher. What makes the bad boy so appealing? So I didn't actually dive into this. For me, I think that Frank and Warren are so appealing because they're not necessarily evil. They have very strong passion. So each of them feels very strongly about their families. So for example, Warren feels wronged by the system because, you know, he's already been kind of cast out by everybody because of what his dad did. Meanwhile, Frank obviously goes on his vengeance journey because he was severely wronged in that his family was massacred for no good reason. I mean, obviously, we don't condone mass murder here.
Right. Yeah. Let's be clear.
Just to be clear. But like within the universe that is fictional, I think that when it comes to their personalities and why people are so attached, people being me and Becca are so attached to characters like Frank, it's because they have a lot of potential and they're not one-dimensional. And you can tell that they would burn down the world, sure, but they burn down the world for the people that they love. And that's, you know, for traumatized people, that just hits a spot. And when it comes to the question, when can the second lead win? I think it's when the friend or love interest A is not rising to the challenge, you know, not kind of being that equal that can be part of a team with, say, for example, Karen or Layla. Like, Will was just not there. He went AWOL. He forgot about his date with Layla at the restaurant, which is why Warren was talking to Layla. Matt, throughout the whole second season, it's the same ship, okay? Like, am I wrong? They're the exact same ship. And so why Matt and Karen don't work, it's not about them being boring. Although, personally, they are a little boring for me. That rain kiss scene, you know, out of context, when you just look at the scene itself, cute, okay? I mean, a little much on the ears with the heavy breathing. Like, Becca was not kidding when she brought up alone, just like the memory of all the audio. I physically cringed. I wanted to gag because it's so true. Like, the way that they do it is just very much like...
No shade to Deb either, because I know she put everything into that.
No,
they
just boosted
it was just
the audio.
Sound.
I don't know, like the sound design, the vision was not there.
I'm like, Matt, is that what you're listening to?
Right. Like, I don't think that they're not cute. I just think that they're kind of flat, that they're kind of cookie cutter. And there are a lot more healthy like there are healthier friends to lovers ships within the MCU. They have the aesthetic of a cute ship. And they have maybe the elements of a cute ship, but when you put it all together, they just weren't. Sis, it's not adding up, okay? That's basically my thesis. In conclusion, yes, I believe that these two ships are the same. And if I have convinced you of that much, then perhaps I invite you, because the popular opinion is that Warren and Layla should have ended up together. That maybe, just maybe, because they're the same ship, maybe Karen and Frank also should have ended up together. I don't know. Maybe that's crazy of me, but I'll leave that up to you, the audience, to decide. This is just me loving the parallel of this scene alone. I just wanted to bring it up for the third time because it's the same. There are some things where I know it's like a reach when I do Kastle analysis, but when it comes to Warren and Layla versus Frank and Kastle, Frank and Karen, I think that the evidence is there. You should show this to Deb and John. And like, please, just let them know.
Oh my goodness.
But yeah, that is my very unhinged presentation. Thank you so much for listening.
So good. You killed it.
Put it together in 2 hours or less, but...
Oh, you killed it, though. And look at that. It, like, tied in perfectly with mine.
It did. I was like, I have a feeling
that was good.
Yours is, like, the foundation, and then I just have to drive it home with...
We might have mentioned that we did our Sky High episode, and we might have literally talked about it.
I know for a fact that we did. So if you want to go back and have a laugh at how unhinged I've been about this parallel, then go ahead and go back to that. to that episode. But yeah, I don't remember the exact moment that I was like, wait a second. But I do think that it was while we were rewatching Sky High during the pandemic, and I was like, hold up,
wait a minute,
wait a second,
big braining here.
Now hold on a second here. Does this mean that Gwen Grayson is Elektra? Yes. Is it a 1-to-1 comparison? Yes.
So,
I don't know.
Wait a minute.
I have a sight for this kind of thing. Matt might have enhanced abilities. I have enhanced delusion.
We need to have an episode where it's just you drawing eerily similar comparisons between ships. Exactly the same scene over and over and over
again.
Ships.
I think I'd do a great job at that. Honestly, that'd be so fun for a PowerPoint party. Recently,
it would be.
My friends and I did one, and I did these are all the ships that altered my brain chemistry, and it was essentially, I had a subsection called "This is the same ship," where it's the light-haired versus the dark-haired character.
Yes.
So I titled this one the Kastle edition because I'm always out here.
You're always looking. You're on the lookout for it.
I'm constantly like, I'm connecting the dots. Next episode, guys, we are going to start our rewatch of, is it X-Men? I can't remember.
No, Fantastic Four first. Four? Yes, Fantastic Four. In lieu of the, in response to the announcement of our new favorite Fantastic Four cast.
Yes. And then after that, once we finish our Fantastic Four rewatch, we will be rewatching the entirety of the X-Men franchise. So
we will.
That's going to be fun.
It's going to be fun.
We hope that you enjoyed this episode, even if you didn't like Kastle, even if you're
even if you're a Marin shooter, I'm sorry. Why are you on here?
We welcome you.
We do welcome you. I'm kidding.
We just have very strong feelings about Kastle that like kind of supersede anything to do with Marin. We love Marin's friendship, just to be clear. We're not like, screw Matt.
We love Matt Murdock very much. Let me be clear.
We sadly do. Let us know if you guys want us to do more PowerPoint parties about unhinged things. It's really fun. Or whatever else you want us to watch. Because
if there's anything that you want our commentary on.
Definitely does not have to be superhero related. We're just kind of on a superhero kick right now. So
we're always kind of on a superhero
I'm
kick.
kind of like, wait.
But we really do watch more than that, I promise. We watch a lot.
We have other interests. Thank you for feeling with us, and we hope to see you in the next one.
Bye.
Bye. Okay, we did it.
We did it.